Good morning. My name is Ann Pearl, and I am your worship associate today. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our Song of Gathering, number 225 in your gray hymnal, O Come, Emmanuel.
Good morning. My name is Gunnell Rydstrom. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you have been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever the theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. And we respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger people. There are a few announcements. As in the past, we will be making the holidays a little brighter for victims of domestic violence and for the unhoused by supporting Hope's Door and Jan Peak House in Peekskill. But instead of purchasing gifts individually, we are asking for donations, and we'll purchase gifts collectively. Please let Terry or Bernie know how much you are planning to donate, and by RSVP to terrylucan@1969@gmail.com. And then send the check to Rita or leave it in the collection plate with holiday giving in the memo. Thanks again for your generosity. If you have a question, any questions, see Terry at Coffee Hour. And then there is a note that those who brought family photos that were displayed on the walls can pick them up at the back of a room. And there is a message about birthdays from our administrator. There have been requests that we start making announcements of birthdays as we did in the past for members and friends. And we will start doing this in January. To make sure we have a record of everyone's birthday, please email Rita at uucroton@gmail.com with your birth month and day. And then Betsy will have an announcement after I'm finished. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry. Confusing things. For the most up-to-date information, please refer to our weekly e-newsletter and check our website frequently. The website is also the place where you can find contact information for staff, board members, and other congregational leaders. And if you're present in the sanctuary, please join us for coffee hour in Fellowship Hall after the service. If you're watching the live stream, you will be invited to check in with members and friends on Zoom. You will find the Zoom link at the end of the live stream or at the bottom of yesterday's email announcement. If you have recently joined us and would like to receive a weekly e-news, please email us your name and we will make sure you're added to the list. We can also answer any questions you might have. The email address is uucroton@gmail.com, or fill out the yellow card at the back of the pews and put it in the collection plate. For those of you in the sanctuary, please make sure your cell phones are silenced. And once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
Hello, I actually have two announcements. The first is that our Christmas Eve service is coming up soon. The membership committee and the arts committee are planning the decorations and the potluck, but we need volunteers to set up that evening and help the cleanup staff. If you're planning to attend, please consider a little bit of volunteering. See Sherry, Chair of Membership, to offer your assistance. The second announcement has to do with the Arts Committee. You know, I'm on it, we do a bunch of different things throughout the year. One of them is we work with fundraising to try to create extra funds for our church. And today, the Arts Committee is presenting a fantastic fundraiser. It's the UUCHV Holiday Craft Show fundraiser. The past 3 weeks, the Arts Committee members have put in tons of time to create handmade, homemade crafts. Nothing you see today during coffee hour is purchased. Everything is made by us. And we're hoping that you will find gifts for everyone in your life from the 2 tables there. And we've priced things to sell. So hopefully you can open up your pocketbooks and you could also take home a beautiful object today. Thank you.
May I have one quick announcement? Ann Summers would like to invite all of you next Sunday at 1 p.m. to the Jingle Horse Ride in Rockefeller State Preserve in Pleasantville on Route 117. She will be on her horse, Shining Star. Kids from Claremont School and Ossining High School will be leading a parade. Dogs on leash are welcome. All are welcome, from 1 to 2 next Sunday.
And I actually have an announcement, which I'm still going to tell you. Please go to the holiday fair. It's so exciting. I know what I'm bidding on. I'm buying something. But afterward, about a half hour into the fellowship hour, a group of us will meet in the fellowship hall, the sanctuary here for part 3 in a class on exploring our UU principles, looking at cultural appropriation, how we grow our faith. And today we're talking about the principles. So if you want to have a little heavy discussion after choosing some holiday cheer, come on back. And in that spirit and in that energy, let's pause. It's so good to see you this morning, whether you're joining us online or whether you're here in the sanctuary. And as we come into this moment of worship, I want to offer a prayer from a former minister of this congregation, the Reverend Orlando Brugnola. And she once prayed, as we move through life finding ourselves, always newly wise and newly foolish, we ask that our mistakes be small, not hurtful. We ask that as we gain experience, we do not forget our innocence. For both our experience and innocence are part of the whole, always newly wise and newly foolish. And with that memory, and with that ministry in our hearts, we now ring our bell. And all young children in the sanctuary are invited to come join our religious exploration director, Jane Podell, and ring our bell 8 times for the 8 principles of our faith. May it be so.
Our chalice lighting words today are by Sarah York. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and, renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown. Thank you, Emily. Now please join me in saying our unison affirmation. The words are in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice.
Thank you. Our Time for All Ages today is a story about a very famous New Yorker, Dorothy Day. Dorothy Day lived a long life from 1897 to 1980. But she's famous because this New Yorker was a newspaper editor, a peace activist, an organizer of houses of hospitality for the poor and hungry, and currently is a candidate for sainthood. She also loved the Staten Island Ferry. And in tribute to her amazing life, which included launching the Catholic Worker Movement, which is an initiative dedicated to justice, solidarity with the poor, and pacifism, the city of New York recently dedicated a Staten Island ferry in her name. Her granddaughter, Martha Hennessy, was on hand at the dedication and declared to the press, as she broke the bottle on the ferry, "In the name of Dorothy Day, may we abolish war and nuclear weapons. Be assured today that the radical changes we see both to church and state, her intense determination to resist so many of our unjust practices, all of that arose from love, including love for New York and its people and the city's rivers and seas and skies, and indeed the ferry. It is no small thing to know that here today, the city that Dorothy Day loved says to her, at least for a moment, Dorothy, we love you back." This morning, I offer a brief reading from that New Yorker, Blessed Dorothy Day, who's probably one of the few candidates for sainthood who also wrote for the New Republic magazine. And this is one of Dorothy Day's reflections on the season of Advent. Behold how small a fire, and yet how great a forest it kindles. The tongue is a fire, and with it we bless God, and with it we curse humanity, who has been made in the image and likeness of God. To love with understanding and without understanding, to love blindly and to follow, to see only what is lovable, to see the best in everyone, their virtues rather than their faults. Many people think an examination of conscience is a morbid affair. Pigou has some verses which Donald Gallagher read to me once at the St. Louis House of Hospitality. He and Cyril opened the house there. They were about examination of conscience. There is a place for it, he said. I have sinned in my thoughts, word, and deed through my fault. But after you get done with it, don't go on brooding about it. Don't keep thinking about it. You wipe your feet at the door of the church as you go in, and you do not keep contemplating your dirty feet. Here is my examination at the beginning of Advent, at the beginning of a new year. Lack of charity, not always looking at the best in others, idle talk, impatience, the desire to correct others but not to be corrected, impatience in thought and speech, meanness about giving time to others but wasting it myself. The remedy for this is recollection and silence. You wipe your feet at the door of the church as you go in. You do not keep contemplating your dirty feet at Advent. And now a moment of silence.
Our reading today is from The Darkness Divine, a loving challenge to my faith, written by the Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper. It's called Creation in the Darkness. In the beginning, there was darkness, a blackness that covered all, comprising the building blocks of creation, the nutrients and nurturing needed to birth the world. This dark womb pushed out the light that released the heavens and cradled the plants and stars adorning the universe. It formed the darkened earth from which all life emerged and to which all life returns when our bodies take their final breath. It is the same darkness that shelters us from an unrelenting sun, that calls animals to safe hibernation, that protects the germination of seed and bulb. Darkness signals an end to the hectic chaos of our days and lulls us to sleep and revitalization so that we can face the next challenge. There is peace in darkness, and mystery and the unknown. And if we rest in its grace, cease fighting to control it, we just might see in it the face of God. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a brief yet personally significant joy or sorrow that you are willing to share, please come up to this microphone and speak loudly so that everyone, including the people watching at home, can hear you. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand and I will light a candle for you. We also acknowledge, oh, sorry. I skipped, I don't know why.
Good morning, I'm Joanne Hefner, and I have a joy and a sorrow. My joy is I just got a beautiful baby quilt from Nora Mulligan. It was just amazing, more than I could ever imagine. So I'm so thankful for that. I'll show you after the service. And my sorrow is I found out this morning that my uncle is passing away. He is a monk. I don't see him very often because he's a monk and he's not supposed to see people very often. So, but I'm very sorry about this.
Good morning, I'm Jana Platina Phipps. My bouncing baby boy made the basketball team at school, and I was very concerned because they cut half of the people who tried out. So I was really relieved because that is his life, and he turns 13 this Thursday, and had him and 8 friends last night at the trampoline place in Mount Kisco, and having 8 13-year-old boys flexing their muscles and pulling up their shirts, and it's really a trip having a 13-year-old boy, and I love it.
Good morning. I'm Betsy Cates. I'd like to light a candle of joy for my son, who is now a little more than halfway through a 5-week journey in Southeast Asia. He's in Chiang Rai as we speak. It's 10:30 at night. I don't even want to think about it. But it's been the most incredibly fulfilling experience for me as a parent to see him able to absorb the true spirit of where he is at a time in his life when it's just he's so perfectly ripe to be doing what he's doing right now. And the accounts that I've gotten are, I'm just over the moon that he's able to do it.
Hi, I'm Susie Dugas, and my joy is being part of the Arts Committee. It's a really great group to work with. We work hard, we get together and create things, and some people are more organizers, and it's just a wonderful thing. So we have the sale this week and next week.
Well, I also have a joy, and it is that my theater group, also Jacqueline's theater group, YCP Theater Works, will be performing here once again this winter, in February to be exact. We are going to be doing a production of the Laramie Project, which some of you might be familiar with. A number of years ago, a young gay man in Laramie, Wyoming was tortured and killed, and the play is really primarily a series of interviews with the people that were involved in his life. So it's a wonderful play. Not only do I hope that you'll come and see it, but perhaps some of you will want to audition for it. There are many parts available, and auditions are coming up this week, actually starting tomorrow evening, as well as Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock right here in our own fellowship hall. So I'm going to light a candle for that. And then I am also going to say the thing I started to say before. We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they too can share their joys and sorrows.
Thank you. Now is a time in our service for a moment of meditation, pause, prayer. Whether you are in the sanctuary or watching online, I invite you to take a breath. Spirit of life and love, bigger than the universe, smaller than a grain of sand. Today, we are on such a journey. Our world feels cold, confused, and overwhelming at times. Help us to remember that even during these difficult moments, people can connect, and that in quiet conversations, life finds a way. Moments of connection, moments of hope, moments of joy, moments of accompaniment in sorrow. Give us the grace to be with one another, especially in those hard moments, because together we can cultivate a space that is beautiful and that sustains life. May it be so. Would you join in a hymn? Dark of Winter, number 55. Reverend Kristen Harper reminds us that in the beginning there was darkness, a darkness that covered all, comprising the building blocks of creation, the nutrients and nurturing needed to birth the world. This dark womb pushed out the light that released the heavens and cradled the plants and stars adorning the universe. This is winter, a season we often associate with passing, with loss, with the transition from the vibrance of those fall leaves into cold and long nights. But Reverend Dr. Harper wants us as a faith movement to reimagine our relationship with darkness. Ironic, because now I'm turning on this light, but darkness. She sees in that a gateway into expanding our consciousness, so that as we relate to the seasons, we may find joy and deepening and gratitude, whatever time of year we're in. And that if we start to reclaim, her theory as well, is if we start to reclaim blackness, darkness, night as beauty, it helps us, even subtly, to develop a consciousness that's more inclusive, to be more conscious of what we're using as our metaphors and how maybe even subconscious we're relating to one another in the world. There is beauty in darkness. This season is full of festivals for the spiritual and secular alike. Ancient festivals mark this time of year: Advent, Christmas, Hanukkah, solstice. And these are all ancient calls into gathering, into remembrance, into expectations that call us into circles of friends, family, neighbors, strangers. Advent in the Christian tradition proclaims a season of expected arrival, an expectation of the return of the sacred to earth, not just a backward look to Bethlehem, but a forward expectation of the unfolding Spirit in our lives. Hanukkah in the Jewish tradition is an invitation, following Rabbi David Wolpe, to rededication. That's what the word means, rededication to the highest principles and in continuity with people and Torah. Solstice, as Dr. Kristen Harper's poem alludes, invites us to consider the darkness divine and to understand a sense of the holy broad enough to include even the darkest night. And many traditions in many contexts, from Mesoamerica to Europe, explore and honor the solstice. This is a time of deep sacred re-examination, reimagination, and dedication. And our relationship to these stories, how we tell them, what we lift up in our day-to-day lives and in our gathered spaces, the where, the who, and the how, these create our relationship to these beautiful, broad, diverse, complicated traditions. How does your holiday emphasize or not what Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman called the margin of hope? How is your holiday celebration in connection or resistance to the margin of hope? In contrast to certain styles of American celebration of Christmas, Reverend Dr. Thurman once wrote a poem that perhaps you've heard before, but when the kings and princes are home, that's when the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among others, and to make music in the heart. And Dr. Thurman's poem actually rhymes with our own faith traditions, practice, and stories. In fact, if you go back to 1945, this is the Unitarian Book of Services, the ancestor to our gray hymnal. And if you turn to page 55, if you just happen to turn to that page, you would find the beginning of a sequence of services related to Advent. And one of those includes an adaptation of a prayer. This would be the responsive reading for that day, an adaptation of a prayer from Isaiah that says, we are called, and this is the Unitarian hymn book during World War II, we are called to preach good tidings unto the meek, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives, and the open of the prison door to those who are bound. We are called to comfort all that mourn, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Unitarians and Universalists have spiritual and secular approaches. We know that. And both styles in our tradition honor choice, connection, and community. And in the spiritual trajectories and traditions of our faith, we have, in the words of Mark Bevar, this view of continuing process, not one-time revelation. Or in other words, drawing on an old Renaissance idea, there are more saints than we have in our calendar. There are more holy teachers than we already know and honor. There are more holy books to be written. There are more sacred habits and learnings and teachings than have already been shared. The sacred is right now, just like our opening hymn, Emmanuel, which literally means the sacred, God is with us. Right now, love, life, truth are indwelling, connecting, possible, here, in Yonkers, in Peekskill, all across this county and country. There are possibilities of connection right now. And there might be a poem written tomorrow that will change someone's life. And there might be a word someone shares later this week which will create a family. So many possibilities are unfolding all around us and are in dialogue with different voices and stories. Among Christians in this month, often the story of Mary is uplifted. Mary, a Jewish peasant living under Roman colonial rule in occupied Israel. Devout and struggling, she hoped to honor the God of her ancestors. And in an ancient text, the Song of Mary, sometimes called the Magnificat, related to the Song of Deborah, she sings some variation of praises, arguing, God has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich have been sent away empty. According to Christian tradition, Mary gave birth to her son, Jesus, in an animal's manger because she had nowhere else to go. And it says in the Gospel of Luke, there was no room for them in the inn. In Islamic tradition, Mary is also revered. And in an English translation of the Quran by Dr. Layla Bakhtir, the Quran states, and remember Mary in the book when she went apart from her people to an eastern place. And in that same chapter, Mary calls God the most merciful. A refugee fleeing violence. A refugee fleeing violence is lifted up as the emblem of the most sacred. A woman who raised and challenged her child to be better despite obstacles. The mother of an innocent man killed by death penalty. Those are the types of lives reflected as sacred in various traditions. So where do we find the margin of hope? How do we affirm it? In this room, the moral imagination to care for children who are sick, to make the best of our lives despite the ongoing threats of COVID, to attempt to create spaces for art and laughter and solidarity with refugees, to hold community with family and friends in hospital and hospice, to disrupt when racist comments are made or sexist actions occur. The sacred is all around us. It's not outside. It's the world we live in. And the sacred can show up in unusual ways. And the sacred is always inviting us in our context, in our day-to-day actions. How are we affirming the margin of hope? Reverend Dr. Thurman said, we live in a world deep in the presence of desolation, pestilence, and despair. So choose the margin anyways. And we always have a choice. I was moved by a story that sounds very deep in the Christian tradition on Staten Island. There's a family, Sebastian and Danielle, the Bongiovanni family, and they own a small pizza shop on Staten Island called Verdi's. Maybe they took the Dorothy Day ferry to work. This is normally not important in a religious context, but it's important for the story. They are Republicans and small business owners, and they are also deeply connected to their faith practice in the Catholic Church. And recently, as migrants from Venezuela have arrived to New York, some have been placed in housing in Staten Island. This has caused, among some, tremendous controversy. And some of the neighbors of the Bongiovanni family and this pizza shop have been, frankly, very hateful, suspicious, and bordering on paranoid in their relationship to these new families that are coming into the neighborhood and city. But in contrast to some who have spent some of the fall demonizing the immigrants, Danielle and Sebastian have made it a regular practice to donate pizza to these families who are getting adjusted to life in this new city. And they're proud of it. And they've gotten hate mail, and they've gotten nasty phone calls. And Sebastian told the Tablet newspaper, you know, if you don't want to come to Verdi's because I help people, don't come. We don't want you. And you know what? There's a lot of people who will come and continue to come, and that's who we're here for. And he told another news outlet, all we can do as human beings is the right thing for what's in front of us. And I think a lot of this bigger picture stuff will get better. All we can do as human beings is to do the right thing for what's in front of us. And Danielle and Sebastian are very clear that their connection to this story of the manger child and Mary fleeing to the Eastern place and this story of refugees, that's why they say, I would be a hypocrite if I go to church and I treat these people differently. I am called to feed the hungry. That is what I am called to do. And as Rabbi David Wolpe reminds us, don't look at someone's espoused label. Holiness and vice is not restricted to one political party. We have to look at the people and what they choose to do in their context. As Reverend William Barber told us last week, consider the permanent issues: justice, gratitude, compassion. Or as Dorothy Day said, I look at what people do, not what they say. We are in a world sick with conflict. In the last month, how many hate actions have been proposed against the Jewish community in our wider metro area? How much violence has happened against anti-Asian hate? How many Black Americans have experienced discrimination? In this cauldron, we are called to honor the song we sang at the beginning and that has been honored in our tradition and in many traditions for centuries, which is Emmanuel. Sacred is among us, sacred is here, and the sacred is who is in this room and beyond. Whether young refugees from Afghanistan, Haiti, or Venezuela, middle-aged Black motorists wrongly pulled over by white police, or elders in nursing care cut off from visitors. We have a choice to lean into the margin of hope. We can grow a community of connection. We can dare to learn new languages. We can dare to write new stories. We can practice love on earth. Unplanned gratitude. Emmanuel, the sacred is with us. And wherever we are located is a chance to wake up and begin again. Keep affirming the margin of hope in the presence of desolation, pestilence, and despair. Don't give up. The stories are still being written. Thank you.
Each week we make an offering from the bounty that we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with Fred's Pantry. Located in downtown Peekskill, New York, Fred's Pantry is hosted at St. Peter's Episcopal Church and provides emergency food, health and housing retention assistance to families and elders in northern Westchester. Please refer to our website for more information or to their website, stpeterspeekskill.org. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the QR code in your order of service. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. Or if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me now in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to always stand for as a community of faith. Now please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. It is in your gray hymnal. Please join me now in extinguishing the chalice. The words are found again in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And for our benediction, once more, I call upon the memory of Reverend Orlando Brugnola, who offered this meditation as we consider the chalice flame which has just been extinguished. She once prayed, "Flame, friend of our most ancient ancestors, as we kindle and remember you now to make visible in this time. Yet even when you are put out, the unique worth of each person does not burn away. In the imagination, in the turning of the heart to sorrow or joy, in the call to hope, and in the call to justice. You burn bright before us, burn bright within us." This flame burn bright before us. May it burn bright within us as we go forward into the world and choose the margin of hope. May it be so.